Hey guys, this is Malinki. Welcome back to my channel, Voice of Malinki. Today we will talk about competitive and non-competitive enzyme inhibition. And if you are new in my channel, please subscribe my channel. And if you like my video, please do like, comment and share my video. So inhibitors are certain compounds that cause enzymes to lose their activity. So this is a normal reaction. Here is the enzyme. This is the active site of the enzyme. This is the substrate, and the substrate fits properly in this active site just like this. Now let's talk about the inhibition of the enzyme. So there are two types of inhibitors: competitive inhibitor and non-competitive inhibitor. So from the name itself, competitive inhibitor, you can understand there is a competition. So a competition between the substrate and inhibitor takes place. So here basically the substrate and inhibitor look same. So this is the inhibitor. It looks like the substrate. So this portion of the inhibitor is exactly same of this substrate. So it can make the enzyme full and it gets fitted in the active site since its structure is similar to the substrate. So competitive inhibitor is a compound that has a structural resemblance to a specific substrate and thus competes with that substrate for binding at the active site of an enzyme. The inhibitor prevents the substrate from approaching the active site. So once the inhibitor sits on the enzyme, the substrate is no longer able to fit. The degree to which a competitive inhibitor interferes with an enzyme's activity depends on the relative concentrations of the substrate and the inhibitor. So basically, if the concentration of substrate is more, there is less chance of an inhibitor to sit on the active site, and vice versa. If the concentration of a substrate is less, there is more chance of an inhibitor to sit on the active site. Okay. If the inhibitor is present in relatively large quantities, it will block most of the active sites. Increasing the substrate concentration promotes displacement of the inhibitor from the active site. Therefore, the binding is reversible. That means we can say that the competitive inhibition is a reversible inhibition. Next is non-competitive inhibitor. Again, from the name you can understand that there is no competition between a substrate and inhibitor. Here the inhibitor, so this is the inhibitor, this is the substrate. Here the inhibitor does not look like the substrate, and even the inhibitor does not sit in the active site. So this is the active site and the active site is empty. This is not occupied by the inhibitor. So a non-competitive inhibitor attaches at any site on the enzyme other than the active site. So in this picture we can see this is the active site, but the inhibitor doesn't sit here. It sits here or here or here. So basically any site other than active site, and the site where the inhibitor attaches is called allosteric site. Now the attachment of the non-competitive inhibitor to the enzyme results in an alteration of the shape of the active site so that the substrate will no longer fit in the active site properly. So once the inhibitor binds the enzyme, it somehow changes the shape of the active site so that the substrate no longer fit in the active site properly. You can see the active site, the shape of the active site is drastically changed, right? And the substrate will not be able to bind here. Because the inhibitor does not structurally resemble the substrate, the addition of excess substrate does not reverse the inhibitory effect. That means the non-competitive inhibition is not reversible. It is irreversible process. So this is all about today's lecture. I hope you liked the lecture. Thank you for watching my video.